At number 10, Matt LeBlanc. Remember that one episode of Friends where they joked about Joey being in an adult film? You know, the one where he played the copy machine guy? Well, did you know that that bit was actually based on real life? Yes, Matt LeBlanc, the actor who played Joey Tribbiani in Friends, actually had a part in an adult entertainment series before his time on Friends. Matt had a role in a Showtime series called The Red Shoe Diaries. This show was about a man who had written an ad for a newspaper asking people to send in their stories about life-changing encounters that they've had with their partners. The man who was the show's narrator would begin each episode by reading a letter aloud, and well, I'm sure you can imagine the rest. Matt LeBlanc had a steady role in the show, and though it isn't necessarily a traditional adult film setting, it's still funny to imagine him in this role, and it still made for some pretty funny content on Friends. At number 9, Tim Allen. Today we know Tim Allen as an actor and comedian known for his roles on Home Improvement, the Santa Claus films, and Toy Story, but before his rise to fame, he was actually a felon. In 1978, just shortly after beginning his stand-up career, Tim was caught by drug-sniffing dogs at the Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport, carrying 1.4 pounds of that good old no-no snow. After being caught with the illegal substance, he faced life imprisonment, but luckily for him, he was offered a deal. In exchange for helpful information, he would be given a reduced sentence. Clearly, he took the deal, otherwise we wouldn't be talking about him right now. Tim ended up ratting on the other dealers he knew, and his sentence was subsequently reduced to 3 to 7 years behind bars rather than a life sentence. Tim was released from prison 28 months later at the age of 29, and because he was a convicted felon, he found it hard to find work, so he tried giving stand-up comedy another go. Obviously, it was a good choice, and Tim is now a household name. So perhaps getting caught was the best thing that has ever happened to him. Before I continue on with this list, I'd like to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, because it really does help us out a lot. At number 8, Leighton Meester. Leighton Meester, the actress known for playing Blair Waldorf on Gossip Girl, shares something in common with Tim Allen, being that they've both spent time behind bars, though for very different reasons. Leighton was born in prison. Yep, you heard that right. This all came out around the beginning of Gossip Girl's run on TV, and everyone was shocked. Essentially, Leighton's mom was arrested in 1983 for trying to smuggle 1,200-pound shipments of Mary Jane out of Jamaica. Leighton's mom, Connie, her boyfriend, and her sister were all arrested. Connie's sister actually ended up breaking out of prison and became the first woman in the US to land on the US Marshals Most Wanted list. After Leighton was born, her parents were released from prison, and eventually Leighton made her way to LA where she started her acting career. She's since had a lot of trouble with her mom, even going so far as to win custody of her brother, but that is another story for another time. At number 7, Adam Hicks. This one is for the Disney Channel kids. Did anyone watch the Disney Channel movie Lemonade Mouth? Well, one of the film's actors, Adam Hicks, has seen his fair share of troubles after leaving Disney. Yet another Disney actor gone rogue. 2018, Adam was arrested for armed robbery after it was believed that he committed 4 or 5 robberies along with his girlfriend Danny Tamburo. According to sources, Adam and Danny allegedly committed these robberies by walking around the San Fernando Valley in California and would go up to innocent people and hold them at gunpoint and demand that they give them anything of value, whether that be cell phones, wallets, jewelry, or otherwise. Now, from what I've seen, there's no word on whether he's been sentenced, but he was being held in police custody with his bail being held at $550,000. His arraignment was postponed last time I checked, but other than that, this scandal has gone cold, so that's probably why no one has heard of it. At number 6, Woody Harrelson. We know Woody Harrelson as a successful actor known for films like The Hunger Games, Now You See Me, and Natural Born Killers, but the latter is a movie that might hit Woody here a little close to home. You see, he's not the only one in his family to have notoriety because his father Charles has also garnered fame, but for all the wrong reasons. Woody Harrelson's dad was a hitman. When paparazzi and reporters want to dig up your past to use against you, this one will certainly strike a nerve with Woody. Charles Harrelson was a hitman known by most as the man who assassinated U.S. federal judge John H. Wood. According to Woody, his father Charles left the family when he was still young and said that he hadn't heard from him until 1981 when the news of his father's arrest was broadcast. Until his death in 2007, Woody had a strained relationship with his father, though he admitted that he would visit him in prison often. Of all the celebrity parents, Woody's dad was definitely one of the wildest. At number 5, Milli Vanilli. The lip sync scandal that surrounded Milli Vanilli was one of music's biggest scandals, and I've never heard about it. Have you? Essentially, Milli Vanilli was a musical duo that was never really real. I mean, they were real people, but their music wasn't theirs. The stage act was put together by German record producer Frank Farian in an attempt to create a star from scratch. He had a vision to be able to put out this amazing music, but he needed the perfect act to sell it. That's where Morvan and Politis came into play. These two dancers were hired by Farian to be the faces of Milli Vanilli, and though it was a musical act, they didn't have to sing. In fact, they never did. The songs were written and produced for them to lip sync to, and it worked for a while, but like all good things, they can never last. Milli Vanilli conquered the Billboard charts and even won a Grammy for their song Girl You Know It's True. They were asked to tour and perform live, but since this act never actually sang, things started to get difficult for them and playing pretend wasn't working anymore. When they would encounter technical difficulties with their track while live, it was stressful and humiliating. Eventually, they were caught in their lie as their track suddenly stopped working during a live performance, revealing to the world that they were faking it all along. This took a huge toll on the duo, especially their mental health, driving Politis to take their own life. This ended in tragedy, but it was still a huge scandal at the time. At number 4, Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf is always in some kind of trouble. He's either making waves in the media for acting a mess, whether that's being racist or pulling wild stunts. Most recently, he's faced backlash as he's been accused of harming his ex-girlfriend FKA Twigs. But there's another scandal, rather scandals, that might not be as well known, and that's his plagiarism and lying. Shia LaBeouf has been caught plagiarizing people's work and lying about it on many occasions, but he's never really learned from his mistakes. He's been caught plagiarizing apologies, then plagiarizing other apologies to apologize for plagiaries. He's copied the actions of Sia and the words of Tigger and a plethora of other people, but one of the biggest plagiarism scandals he faced is when he ripped off a plot from a graphic novel for his film HowardCantor.com, which premiered at the Cannes Film Festival. When he got caught plagiarizing, he claimed that he had no idea that the plot was the same, and then when issuing a statement/apology for his actions, he once again turned to plagiarism and copied a Yahoo Answers post. Because of how many times he's done something like this, I have to wonder if he's doing this on purpose to make it his brand or something, because he knows he's not getting away with it. At number 3, Dr. Seuss. Recently, we've been hearing a lot of news about Dr. Seuss. Well, his books, really. Though he was a beloved children's book author, famous for creating The Cat in the Hat, The Grinch, and Horton Hears a Who, now people are finding out that some of his books contain racist imagery. 6 of Dr. Seuss's books have now been pulled from his collection and will no longer be published because of racist imagery, but this discussion isn't new and has been a minor scandal for many, many years. A survey of Seuss's work found that the portrayal of black characters in his books relied heavily on, quote, anti-blackness and images of white supremacy, end quote. Schools and libraries have been banning many of Seuss's books because of the racist portrayals of non-white characters, and these criticisms have been linked as far back as the 80s. It's good to know that now people are recognizing racism and taking action to eliminate it from our world, so it's a good step forward. This scandal has been brewing in the background for some time now, so people are only now learning about it, which is probably why no one really knew about it until recently. At number 2, Sinead O'Connor. In October 1992, Sinead O'Connor caused some controversy during her guest spot on SNL. She was brought on the show to be the evening's musical guest, and already people were a little confused by her as she refused to sing one of her songs from her recent album at the time. She instead opted to sing an a cappella version of Bob Marley's song War. It was an intense performance, and she even changed some of the lyrics to specifically mention young people. As the song came to an end and she was wrapping up her performance, she pulled out a photo of Pope John Paul II and tore it up, saying, quote, fight the real enemy. Sinead's actions caused a huge stir. After her performance, NBC started receiving thousands of angry calls over the following days, and even some celebrities came forward to criticize her actions. She wanted to bring attention to the Catholic Church's treatment of young people because she's had personal experience with such things. I never knew about the scandal, so I'm curious to know how many of you guys remember this. And finally, at number 1, Justin Bieber. J-Beebs has had a plethora of scandals. As we all know, he's had a rough time in the public eye for many years, and he's caused a lot of trouble. His relationship with Selena Gomez, as well as many DUIs, music scandals, as well as being banned from some places are a few that come to mind, but one scandal that might be news to some is that in 2011, a woman alleged that Justin was the father of her child. Mariah Yeater came forward in 2011 claiming that she had once met up with Justin backstage after one of his concerts and that he had fathered her child. When this news first broke, Justin said that he had never even met Mariah, let alone had a relationship with her, but since the media was blowing the story up and Mariah guy was looking to enter into a paternity suit, Justin agreed to take a DNA test to prove that the baby wasn't his. He ended up addressing this whole situation in his song Maria, but unfortunately for the Biebs, this kind of thing would happen again in 2013 with yet another fan. He didn't father any children though, so I guess that's good for him.
Number 10 on this list is JLo's and Alex Rodriguez's breakup. After 4 years together and an engagement, the pair cut ties and went their separate ways earlier this year. Now the breakup itself, it seemed rather amicable on the surface. They both said, "We will continue to work together and support each other on our shared businesses and projects. We wish the best for each other and one another's children's." Out of respect for them, the only other comment we have to say is thank you to everybody who has sent kind words and support. So, all of that honestly seems really nice. However, it didn't take Lopez very long to move on from A-Rod and go back to an old flame in Ben Affleck. Fans have speculated if there was potentially something going on between them prior to the breakup, but nothing of significance has gone to proving that. Meanwhile, A-Rod is still recovering from the loss. He's been posting a lot more on his Instagram in what fans believe is an effort to make JLo jealous. He has also been captioning things like, "I've fallen and I can't get up, and I'm good with that." But I'm not totally sure if you are though, Alex, because the day that the breakup was announced, he posted a video with Coldplay's Fix You playing in the background as he shared photos of him and Lopez very much in love. The super amicable joint breakup that was portrayed may have been a lot more one-sided than we initially thought. Number 9 on this list is the conflict that had arisen from Prince Harry and Meghan Markle with the royal family. The couple now lives in California, far from the reaches of the British crown. They no longer live near their relative royals due to some pretty bad blood that has gone down in the family over the past several years. In 2018, Meghan and Harry, they got married and they were immediately on the cover of every tabloid one could think of. What we weren't aware of though was that there was a little bit of trouble in paradise. The pair eventually stepped down from their royal duties as they felt increasingly ostracized from the other royals. A very close family friend came out and said, "There is so much bad blood in that family, it's toxic." Over this past year, Harry has apparently tried to make contact with his father, but has said that he's been cut out completely. His phone calls often going straight to voicemail. It seems that the bad blood is still very thick, and that even a move to California hasn't fixed the underlying problems that the royal family has. Number 8 on this list is less of a scandal and more of like a what? Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis were on Dax Shepard's podcast having an interview when they said on that show that they don't bathe their kids until they can see dirt on them. Like, what? Like, how often do your kids have dirt on them? I can't imagine it's that much. This wasn't the end of this little tidbit of information though, because Kristen Bell decided that she wanted to weigh in on the pressing issue. She came out and said, and I quote, "I'm a big fan of waiting for the stink. Once you catch a whiff, that's biology's way of letting you know you need to clean it up. There's a red flag. Honestly, it's just bacteria. Once you get bacteria, you gotta be like, get in the tub or shower." End quote. So I hear you with that, Kristen, like I do, but I feel like I'm not the weird one for saying that having a regularly scheduled showering time is kind of the norm. I mean, at least the kids are probably loving this, like they barely have to bathe. Number 7 on this list is the pettiest move in history by Conor McGregor. Conor has been in the media a lot recently, but it hasn't been for his fighting prowess. It has been for various allegations that really put his character into question. One of these allegations was an charge that he actually pleaded guilty to. Back in 2019 in an Irish pub, McGregor sucker punched a man in the back of his head as the man was drinking his whiskey. Clearly they had had a verbal altercation, but it didn't need to go to a physical place. Even though that was 2 years ago and McGregor was clearly in the wrong, he hasn't let it go. In fact, in 2021, Conor returned to that same pub that the incident happened at, but this time with a big fat check. He bought that Irish pub from the owner, and directly after the news broke that he did this, he tweeted out, "Yeah, and your man's barred." This was in reference to the person that he had hit 2 years ago. So McGregor literally went out of his way to spend an abhorrent amount of money by this bar just so he could get the last laugh in a dispute that should have been settled years ago. If that doesn't scream petty, I'm not sure what does. Number 6 on this list is Chrissy Teigen. The 35-year-old supermodel and wife of musician John Legend had her name in the media for all the wrong reasons when she was called out for a controversial bullying scandal. Courtney Stodden, a 27-year-old supermodel, called out Chrissy for an array of bashful tweets and messages that left her feeling very small. After this came out, several others followed suit and reported that Chrissy had left them feeling worthless, with one individual saying that they even considered suicide after working with her. Chrissy Teigen took some serious time away from the media, and it seems as if that was the right choice. She's come back now and is apparently a stronger person. She says that she is over 100 days sober and feels a lot more clear-headed. Hopefully all of that is true and that the harsher side of Chrissy is left in the past. Number 5 on this list is the cheating scandal from Khloe Kardashian and Tristan Thompson. It feels like this is a perpetual story in the media, but once again, it's glaring its ugly head in 2021. Back in March, Khloe posted a really cute Instagram photo of her and Tristan with their kid at a fancy event for Tristan Thompson's birthday. The couple looked really happy, and she captioned the picture, "The ones that are meant to be are the ones who go through everything that is designed to tear them apart, and they come out even stronger than they were before. Thank you for showing me everything you said you would, for the father you are, for the best friend I have in you. I'm thankful I can do absolutely nothing with you, and it feels like everything." Well, I'm happy that you feel that way, Khloe, but clearly Tristan did not feel the same. Only a few months later, the pair broke up again when Tristan was seen entering a bedroom with 3 other women and was apparently parading himself as being single. Apparently now, the pair aren't fully back together, but they're spending lots of quality time together. So we'll see how that develops in time. Number 4 on this list is Ioan Gruffudd and the whole incident with his family. Ioan has been in countless movies and TV shows over his long career, and his ex-wife, Alice Evans, is no stranger to movies and TV either, having been in her own fair share of things. Well, on January 6th of this year, she tweeted out, "Sad news. My beloved husband slash soulmate of 20 years, Ioan Gruffudd, has just announced he is to leave his family starting next week. Me and our young girls are very confused and sad. We haven't been given a reason except that he no longer loves me. I'm so sorry." So yeah, that was a lot, guys. Now, first thing I would say about this is that when reading this now deleted tweet, you can tell that she's upset. And I mean, rightfully so. Her husband of 20 years is completely leaving, and you have a right to be hurt. She does say that he doesn't give her a reason, and I hate to say, but I do think he does. Not loving someone, in my mind, is a pretty sizable reason, but I can only imagine that after 20 years, that has to be a heartbreaking blow. Now, what has not been confirmed is whether he was leaving his daughters as well, or just wanting to separate from his wife. So we still don't really know about that, but this scandal has actually recently got a development too. Alice Evans has accused Ioan of having an affair for 3 years while they were together. Whether that's true or not, we're gonna have to wait and see. Number 3 on this list is Kanye and Kim. You had to know that it would be on this list, but the split between Kim Kardashian and Kanye West sent waves through the internet when it happened. The pair had been married for 6 years, however rumors started to surface about cracks in their marital foundation. This all came bubbling up to the surface when footage of Kim was released where she was crying to her sisters, "Why am I still in this, like, place where I'm stuck for years? Like, he goes and moves to a different state every year. I have to be together so I can raise the kids, you know?" She goes on to say that Kanye deserves somebody that can support his every move and go follow him all over the place and move to Wyoming. She says, "I can't do that. I feel like an effing failure that it's like a third effing marriage." Obviously, Kim wasn't happy to be losing another marriage, but realized that it was in her best overall interest. The split was civil, however some lines from Kanye's album Donda allude to a lot of mistrust in the relationship. Clearly this marriage had been flawed for a while. I mean, Kanye lived in a different state than Kim for most of the time, and they barely saw each other. Not really the romantic foundation that a marriage should be built off of. Number 2 is Britney Spears' conservatorship case. Back in 2008, the pop star's career was put in the hands of a legal guardian due to her mental health being severely in question. The agreement had her father control her estate and other aspects of her life. Now, this was intended to help Britney as she went to rehab and got her career and life back in order. However, she has come out and said that her father has done quite the opposite. that she was apparently drugged and forced to perform against her will, that her father prevented her from having more children under this thing. Basically, that he was running every aspect of her life and she couldn't live like this anymore. This sparked the social media to come to her aid with a whole movement that was meant to free Britney. Very recently, this goal was accomplished and her power-hungry father was stripped of his title, and thankfully Britney was able to get her freedom back. The whole thing is just so icky, and I, for one, I'm really happy to see her getting some control back in her life. Number 1 on this list is the ongoing lawsuit against Shia LaBeouf. The former Transformer star has been in the tabloids for some time now due to a lawsuit filed by his ex-girlfriend, FKA Twigs, in regards to behavior during their relationship. Now, the abuse that she was suing him over dealt with emotional and physical stuff that spanned their entire dating history. LaBeouf was dating Margaret Qualley at the start of 2021, but that didn't last very long, and amid all of these rumors circling him, the couple went their separate ways. It should also be noted that the actor has recently been dropped from several films and projects that he was supposed to be scheduled to work on. It seems like the common theme here is that his mental health is not where it needs to be right now. Substance abuse also seems to be a common topic in this lawsuit and from others that have reported inappropriate behavior from the actor. Only time will tell how this lawsuit develops and if LaBeouf will be able to right the ship and hopefully get himself clean.
Starting off at number 10, we have Solange attacked Jay-Z. Something we can never ever fully forget but might slip our minds every once in a while is when Solange beat up Jay-Z in an elevator. Well, Beyonce just watched and did nothing. And the best part is that TMZ has footage of the whole thing. And although we don't know for sure what caused the fight, with all the cheating rumors that were exposed after, it's safe to say that Jay cheated, with rumors swirling that Rachel Roy was actually the one he cheated with. The E! News source claimed that Roy, who used to work at Jay-Z's company Rockaware, had allegedly gotten a little too flirty with the rapper earlier in the evening, causing Beyonce to approach Rachel and let her know that the behavior was disrespectful and she wanted her out of their lives for good. And the fight caused so much attention that they were forced to make a joint statement. In summary, it read that their family had worked through the incident and that both parties apologized to each other. As well, they shut down rumors that Solange was intoxicated or erotic, saying that it was just a simple family fight. And I don't know about you guys, but my family fights do not look like that. And at number 9, Justin Bieber and Frank. I don't think I can make a list like this without talking about the Biebs, and talking about one of his past scandals. One that's quite a head scratcher is when he went to see Anne Frank's house and says that she would have been a believer. Like, does he really need to make everything about himself? After looking through the house, he wrote in the guest book, quote, "Truly inspiring to be able to come here. Anne was a great girl. Hopefully she would have been a believer." And just yikes. One of the comments about the incident said, "She would have been a what? That little idiot is way too full of himself. She's an important historical figure, show some respect." And that trip in general included tons of bad press for Justin, like when his pet monkey was seized in Germany by authorities. We can literally do a top 10 on Justin Bieber scandals. Let me know below if you want that. And at number 8, Christian Bale's outburst. Christian Bale looked incredibly bad when a leaked audio was released of him yelling at the top of his lungs on the set of a movie, with him yelling at 2 men who he claimed ruined the shot.
What the f are you doing? Are you professional or not? Yes, I am. Do I walk around and rip that? No, shut the f up, Bruce. Do I want? No! No! Don't shut me up. Am I gonna walk around and rip your lights down?
With Bale claiming that the crew member walked into Bale's eyeline during a take, distracting him. And the yelling and screaming that he does is insane. He sounds like an 8-year-old that needs a timeout, honestly. But Bale ended up apologizing, saying that he acted like a punk, along with tons of other sentiments that claimed that he was sorry. But that incident brought back claims made by his own family that he's unstable and needs help. Bale's own mother, named Jenny, told the press that incidents like this are what drove her to report her son for assault in London before the UK Dark Knight premiere. And at number 7, Britney Spears' shaved head. This is one that I'm sure you all remember, but with the recent information that has come out, you might not realize the real reason that Britney shaved her head. Back in 2007, Britney broke the internet when paparazzi captured her having what looked like a mental breakdown. And since mental health wasn't a subject that was as talked about, people immediately went to the worst. But a tattoo artist that tattooed Britney right after the incident told the press what Britney said was her reason for the shave. She claimed Britney told her, quote, "It was, I just don't want anybody touching my head. I don't want anyone touching my hair. I'm sick of people touching my hair." And this could be linked to the fact that Britney had very little control over her life at that time, and everyone was telling her what to do. We can assume this also includes her father, Jamie Spears, who she is now in a furious legal battle with. But there are also reports that Britney was using drugs at that time, and there were fears that her kids would get taken away if there were drugs found in her system, and apparently certain drugs can be found in your hair, so she shaved her hair so she would get to keep her kids. In at number 6, Billy Bob Thornton and Angelina Jolie blood vials. Remember back when Billy Bob Thornton was married to Angelina Jolie? Seriously, I don't even know how that happened. But the media had an obvious fascination with the couple, but the most fascinating thing was the fact that they wore necklaces of each other's blood while married. And even though the media went wild with them, Thornton claimed later that it actually wasn't that big of a deal, saying in an interview, "The necklaces were a very simple thing. Hey, let's poke our fingers with a pen and smear a little blood on there, and when we're away from each other, we'll wear the necklace. It was that easy." But by the time it came out in the press, it sounded like we were wearing a bucket of blood around our necks. Continuing about the years between 1995 to 2003, he said it was a crazy time and that he's not very fond of it. And honestly, I don't care how you explain it, the blood thing is weird. Halfway number 5, Kristen Stewart cheating. Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson were the hottest couple in Hollywood after the massive success of the Twilight saga that brought them together. But everything changed when images were released of Kristen cheating with the director of the film that she was working on, Rupert Sanders. And to make things worse, Sanders was married with children. And after this one was released, it instantly became one of the biggest stories of that year, as nobody could believe Kristen would cheat. After the news was set on fire by this, Kristen ended up making a public apology to Pattinson, and they actually ended up getting back together. But they did eventually split for good a little while later. And at that time, I was obsessed with Twilight and their love story, and I just still can't believe that she cheated and ruined that for all the fans. So sad. And at number 4, Justin Timberlake, Janet Jackson's Super Bowl. This scandal completely rocked the world. It was brought up again when Justin Timberlake was asked to perform at the 2018 Super Bowl halftime show. And in case you don't already know, while the two were performing at the Super Bowl, at the very end of the performance, Justin ripped off a piece of clothing covering Janet's breast, and it ended up exposing her nipple to millions of people live on air. After the incident, the world was set ablaze, and tons of viewers were very angry. MTV was forced to make a statement saying, "The tearing of Janet Jackson's costume was unrehearsed, unplanned, completely unintentional, and was inconsistent with the assurances we had about the content of the performance." Even worse, after the incident, many put the blame solely on Jackson, saying that she created the stunt, and it caused her career to take a massive hit. Years later, it's still a sore spot for everyone. In at number 3, Reese Witherspoon arrested. In April of 2013, America's sweetheart Reese Witherspoon turned into its worst nightmare after she was arrested with her husband in Atlanta. It started when her husband, Jim Toth, was pulled over and arrested for suspicion of driving under the influence. And from the video, it was very clear that she did not respect authority and started to get in the cop's face when he was dealing with Toth. Reese was so out of line that the cop ended up arresting her, and while he was, she pulled the classic, "Do you know who I am?" and told him that he was gonna know who she was soon. Reese, of course, issued an apology, but it's something the public will never truly forget. But in a way, it was somewhat helpful for her career, because it helped her create a rougher image and helped her to expand into more roles. In at number 2, Caitlyn Jenner car accident. In 2015, right around the time that she made her very public transition, Caitlyn Jenner was involved in a deadly car crash in Malibu that ended up killing one woman. According to a video that was later leaked, it showed Jenner's black Escalade running into the back of another car, which then forced it into incoming traffic where it collided with a Hummer, and it ended up killing animal rights activist and actress Kim Howe. After the incident, Jenner was not convicted of anything, as she was driving reasonably in the situation. But the worst part was that allegedly Jenner did not apologize to the victim's family and blamed the accident on the victim. As well, since there was so much publicity surrounding Caitlyn's transition at that time, not a lot of people actually know that this accident took place. And finally, number 1, Fergie pees herself. Another infamous moment that I didn't even know happened was when Fergie peed herself during a performance with the Black Eyed Peas. And it was so terrible that Fergie called it the most unattractive moment of her life. She later explained the incident further on a radio show. She said it was just a simple case of not having time to use the bathroom before the show. Basically, because of traffic, the act was very late to the venue, so when they arrived at the show, there was no time to do anything other than rush on stage. With her adding, "It does not just happen all the time," adding, "I wish it didn't happen. It was so embarrassing." And although I wouldn't consider this one a scandal, it was definitely extremely embarrassing and was talked about in the media for days.
At number 10, Katy Perry. One person that you don't often think about having a scandal is Katy Perry. I mean, yeah, she's had some beefs here and there, but nothing too major, right? Well, I mean, she did have a pretty big beef with some nuns, and it was kind of a big deal. Back in 2015, Katy was in a feud with a group of nuns that turned into a legal battle because they just didn't like her. Let me explain. Katy was trying to buy the Sisters of the Most Holy and Immaculate Heart of the Blessed Virgin Mary's aging convent in LA for $14.5 million. She gave her offer to the Los Angeles Archdiocese in order to purchase the property, but when the nuns caught wind of this transaction, they were like, heck no, and went behind the Archdiocese back to sell the property to a different buyer. They did this because they didn't like what they saw in Katy's music videos and they thought it was too inappropriate. They ended up selling the property for less than Katy offered. The nuns got into some pretty big trouble with the Archdiocese, and he even ended up taking the matter to court and even accused the buyer of taking advantage of the nuns. They ended up winning the property back so that Katy could still buy it. She got brought into all of this mess because Katy wasn't wholesome enough for the nuns. But I mean, have you seen Katy? She's a doll. I'd sell her anything. At number 9, Jude Law. You may know Jude Law from films like Sherlock Holmes, Fantastic Beasts, and The Young Pope, but you might not know about Jude's streak as a Hollywood heartbreaker. Jude was sort of known to have a number of partners, and he and his wife were rumored to have been swingers, someone who would swap partners from time to time. But there came a time where he seemingly left that life behind and entered into a new relationship with actress Sienna Miller. Things were fine and they even got engaged until a cheating scandal erupted that blew everything out of the water. In 2006, a woman named Daisy Wright, who was the nanny for Jude's children, came forward about an alleged affair that she'd been having with Jude. She did an interview with the Sunday Mirror, a British news publication, and went in depth about her relationship with the actor, sharing every juicy detail. She even shared details about their passionate lovemaking and went on to say that Jude was, quote, a great lover who knows how to satisfy a woman. People couldn't believe what was happening, having Jude exposed like that, but in a surprise turn, Jude actually owned up to his actions. He came forward and came clean about everything, making a public apology to his then fiancée. It was scandalous, but very few people actually know about this. Now, before I go any further, I'd like to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, because it really helps us out a lot. At number 8, Gwyneth Paltrow. Gwyneth Paltrow is known for being a little odd. Her brand Goop has garnered a few haters because of how strange and unorthodox it is. She's advertised a number of strange health and beauty products on her site that have people scratching their heads, and her must-have list nearly always includes products that are much too expensive for normal people to afford. Really, the consensus is that Goop is weird, and it's actually gotten her into some legal trouble in the past. In 2018, Gwyneth was faced with a lawsuit against Goop filed by the California Food, Drug, and Medical Device Task Force over 3 products that were sold from the Goop website. The $66 jade eggs, $55 rose quartz eggs that were advertised to benefit women's health down there, and the flower essence blend that was advertised to, quote, assist in clearing of guilt, shame, and self-criticism and blame. After being taken to court, Gwyneth settled and was ordered to pay $145,000 and reimburse customers who bought those 3 products, as well as refrain from advertising products that don't actually have any benefits. At number 7, Katt Williams. You don't always hear about celebrities having Karen moments, but when they do, oh boy, is it entertaining. In April 2016, comedian Katt Williams had a Karen moment, and it ended with him throwing a salt shaker at an employee. It all started when Katt had arrived at a restaurant with members of his family. When they got there, they started seating themselves, but were promptly told that they needed to move because the spot that they had chosen to sit at was already being reserved by another group. Katt then got into a heated argument with employees over the seating arrangement, and then that is where things escalated. He ended up throwing a salt shaker at a restaurant manager. Police were called after Katt threw the salt shaker, but before officers arrived, he had left the scene. He was later found at a Waffle House where he was arrested and charged with 1 count of battery. Now, I have no clue what was said during this altercation, but I do have a feeling that the most famous phrase of "do you know who I am" was uttered, and I can definitely bet money on it. At number 6, Nicolas Cage. There's nothing worse than getting exposed by a book. Well, I mean, there are worse things in life, but for a celebrity, bad press can be detrimental to your image. For Nicolas Cage, he was met with some pretty harsh accusations of dog napping from actress Kathleen Turner, as she wrote in her 2008 memoir, Send Yourself Roses, that he, quote, came across a chihuahua that he liked and stuck it in his jacket. Like I said, bad press can do some serious damage to a celebrity's career, and Nick knew this, so upon finding out about her accusation, he promptly sued her for defamation, defamation, libel, and slander. Luckily for him, Nick came out on top and won his case, and in return, Kathleen had to issue an apology to him and paid his legal fees and issued a donation to a charity of his choosing. He chose the National Adult Protective Services Foundation, a charity that benefits victims of elder abuse. I really like how he made her donate to a charity and pay it forward rather than just giving him a bunch of money. It's a nicer thing to do. At number 5, Sean Combs. Celebrities get sued by random people for random things all the time. Most times, they don't even get reported on because they're just so menial, but this story was so wild that it just had to be shared. Sean Combs, aka Diddy, faced a lawsuit in 2011 from a woman who made a number of wild claims against him. She sued the rapper for $1 trillion because she claimed that he was her child's father and that he never paid her child support, and that he once stole a poker chip from her that was worth, quote, 100 zillions of dollars. I cannot make this stuff up. Of the $1 trillion that she was suing for, she claimed that 900 billion was for unpaid child support payments and the rest was for emotional damages. On top of that, she submitted handwritten legal claims that claimed that he had physically hurt her and her kids and that he was the one behind the tragic 9/11 attacks. This lawsuit really didn't go anywhere, but it did get a court date, so it's really more than I was expecting. She also applied for a restraining order against Diddy, but that was denied. This was all so crazy, so I wonder how many people actually knew about this. At number 4, George Lopez. It's not every day that you see a big Hollywood star making headlines in Canada. Really, our news headlines are about maple syrup and igloos and the best way to prepare your moose for winter. I'm kidding, but hearing about celebrities getting into shenanigans in the Great White North isn't something that you hear often. Back in 2014, George Lopez was performing a comedy show at a casino in Windsor, Ontario, and he got a little too enamored with that good old Canadian hospitality because he ended up getting pretty tipsy. After having performed his stand-up routine, he had some celebratory drinks at the casino and got a little carried away. George ended up flat on the floor after drinking to excess and passing out in the casino. Police were called and took him into custody for the night, though no charges were laid. Later on, he poked fun at his intoxication, saying that he was headed to his room that night, but just, quote, missed it by 35 floors. George reportedly gave up drinking after that night. At number 3, Bruno Mars. These days, we don't hear much about Bruno Mars, but there was a time when he faced some pretty big trouble and not everyone knows about it. Back in 2010, Bruno was arrested in Las Vegas after a show for suspected possession of that good old no-no-snow. According to the police report, Bruno was arrested after hotel security discovered that the singer was in possession of illegal narcotics and he was detained. It was later found that he had 2.6 grams of no-no-snow on him. In order to avoid jail time, Bruno ended up taking a plea deal, paying a fine, and serving 1 year probation. I was surprised to find this out about Bruno because he seemed so genuine, but now I don't know what to believe. At number 2, Mila Kunis. I have a few more wild celebrity lawsuits that I want to share with you because more people need to know about this. Some of you may recall that actress Mila Kunis is from the Ukraine. Well, when she was a kid, she apparently had a friend who had a pet chicken. Well, one day this chicken just disappeared and Mila was blamed for its disappearance. Well, years later, after Mila became a successful actress, Christina Caro, Mila's childhood friend, ended up moving to America to pursue her dream of becoming a singer, but to her surprise, she moved to an area that was pretty close to where Mila was living. This brought up some deep-rooted emotions for Christina because she suddenly remembered her poor lost chicken and she ended up seeking therapy to help her cope. Christina also issued a lawsuit against Mila for having allegedly stolen her pet chicken from years ago and was looking to receive money to cover her therapy bills. Christina alleged that this trauma prevented her from, quote, pursuing the American dream. Later, it was alleged that this was all just a publicity stunt to promote her song, but I really don't know how well that worked for her. Still, the mystery as to what happened to the chicken remains unsolved. And finally, at number 1, Beyonce. I saved the best one for last. I don't know how many people have heard of this, so please tell me down in the comments if you've heard of this story. This seems to be a little obscure, so just let me know. Anyways, Beyonce is one of the biggest names in music, as we all know. I mean, she didn't earn the title of Queen Bee for nothing. She's faced a number of wild lawsuits in the past, including one where someone claimed to have been the surrogate for Beyonce's daughter Blue Ivy. But one story in particular takes the cake and not enough people know about it. Beyonce was once sued by one of her former drummers for allegedly using extreme witchcraft to ruin her life. The drummer, a woman by the name of Kimberly Thompson, claimed that the singer used magic spells on her, killed her pet cat, cursed her relationships, and made her lose out on money and jobs. She also claimed that Beyonce stole her home, property, computer, and hard drives, and that she tapped her phone as well. There's no proof that Beyonce ever did any of these things, but if she really did use magic, how would she have left evidence? Smart. The judge threw this case out and also denied her request for a restraining order. Wild stuff.
Oprah Winfrey. Who would have guessed that this woman, famous for handing out cars on her talk show, is being cancelled by the entire world? And why, you may ask? Well, Oprah made a career-ending mistake when herself and Dwayne Johnson broke the one rule of being a billionaire. Don't ask poor people for their money. A few weeks ago, Oprah and The Rock announced that they would be starting a relief fund for the victims of the Maui wildfires. The People's Fund of Maui was given a solid $10 million to get off the ground. $10 million donated by Oprah and Dwayne combined. So why is it just Oprah that's getting so much hate? Well, it's because she has a net worth of roughly $2.8 billion. That is billion with a B. The world is collectively furious at Oprah for having the audacity to ask working class citizens for charity when most people can barely afford to put food on their tables. The Rock and Oprah donated $5 million each to give the fund a head start. Well, guess what? $5 million to Oprah is like 500 to us. Just chump change. Oprah has responded to the backlash online and is very confused as to where all this hate is coming from. Oprah has been known for a long time as being a pretty charitable woman. Who could forget Oprah's famous "you get a car, everyone gets a car" moment? The moment was historical on her series and it was parodied time and time again, and it still does to this day. However, what a lot of people don't know is that that wasn't really the case. It wasn't as simple as "here are your keys, have fun." Whenever someone gives out anything, especially on television, there's always a catch. For Oprah's audience, the catch was that if they actually wanted to drive away in their brand new car, they would have to pay over $7,000 first in taxes. While Oprah's studio would of course cover like the sales tax and the registration for each car, the audience members were given a choice to either pay the $7,000 and take the car or simply take the cash instead. The infamous moment on the show featured 11 real teachers who were, according to Oprah, in desperate need of a new car. They, along with the audience, received keys in a box on camera that Oprah claimed to be for their new cars. Everything has a catch though, even now. For someone who's known for being charitable and generous, the word free clearly means something else to Oprah. Now, the world is understandably frustrated. Imagine someone with a physical gold bar around their neck asking you for spare change on the street. Hey, what's that thing around your neck? It's shiny, it makes me feel bad about myself. Use that. Oprah has always been a little bit twisted. Let's not forget just what her show really is. Oprah used to bring the most vulnerable people that she could find onto the show to share their stories. While some were just actors, gurus, or people sharing positive tragedies, there were also just so many people who would just cry on her show. And let's not forget the other careers that this woman is responsible for creating, especially programs with some of her friends. Oprah is not just responsible for many hopes and dreams being squashed live on air, she's actually also the creator of a couple of talk show celebrities, namely health expert Dr. Oz, and of course the so-called life coach, Dr. Phil. Before Dr. Phil had his own show, Oprah actually asked him and his courtroom consulting firm to help with a trial. Before meeting Oprah, Phil apparently had zero interest in being a television personality, but Oprah made him see the light, so to speak. According to Phil, she helped him understand the power of these shows and what they were truly made for. For Phil, he brings people onto his show who are struggling with personal issues that just so happen to be good for TV. Remember the Catch Me Outside girl? Dr. Phil made her rich and famous. Good job, buddy. But it's not just Phil that's had some controversial moments. Her other protege, Dr. Oz, has had some pretty rough moments as well. His show is centered around medicine and health, which is never controversial, right? Bringing so-called experts on every week. My mother absolutely loved this guy, and she will not stop hammering in his tactics. Oprah was partnered with both of these people, meaning that whatever their shows made, she got a little bit of something for her trouble. Now, she doesn't like to advertise how much she actually made from these programs, but considering how many episodes there have been and how long the programs have run for, it's probably a lot. Like, think about all of the money that this woman has made off of the tragedies of others. This situation with Maui is just another one of the many so-called foundations and charities that she's behind. Now, while some have been extremely beneficial to the world, especially the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls in South Africa, others are just clear cash grabs and bragging right makers like this one. If Oprah really wanted to make a difference and truly help the people of Maui, she would have donated $10 million by herself and gotten Dwayne to match it or something. But let's not forget about the other person involved in the situation, Dwayne Johnson, aka The Rock. He's one of the busiest and most bankable men in Hollywood. This man has appeared in everything, and he even turned himself into a superhero when he played Black Adam. His power and influence knows no bounds. Now, of these two, we understand why Dwayne would feel that this is an important cause, because he has family on the island and spent a ton of time in Maui growing up. Now, Oprah is just Oprah. She actually purchased a property in Maui not long before the fires broke out. Many believe that the only reason that she even cares about the situation is because she owns land there. If she was still living in the States, she would have continued to live her life without a care in the world. The proof that they believe Maui is home is comparing their efforts to that of Dolly Parton, who organized a foundation to assist people in Tennessee after a wildfire destroyed thousands of homes. I've actually stayed in Gatlinburg, where she's from, many times. It is a beautiful town, but from what I understand, the resort that I used to stay at with my family has practically been burned down to the ground. Dolly did an incredible job and continues to do humanitarian work across the US and around the world to this day. However, when Oprah asked people to do it, it just felt weird. Like someone who was not from this place was taking a vested interest in the situation. Before this Maui situation though, Oprah was a well-respected TV host. But as it turns out, there might have been some dark truths behind the production of her show that should have been red flag after red flag. Case in point, the confidentiality agreements. Now, confidentiality agreements are not uncommon in the world of Hollywood. Heck, Marvel will literally have someone take you out if you even think about sharing their secrets. In Kitty Kelly's tell-all book about Oprah, the author mentions the confidentiality agreements that co-workers and guest stars were made to sign. This included everyone from Tom Cruise to the person who made his muffins. Over 500 staff members were forced to sign this document, but one former employee, Elizabeth Cody, tried to write a book about her time working for Oprah, but she was apparently stopped by the courts, still being tied to this agreement that she had signed even though she didn't really work for the show anymore. The NDAs were not meant to be a way to keep just the show secrets safe, but any and all of Oprah's secrets as well. According to Elizabeth, the document was signed by almost everyone in Oprah's life. She may have this brand of sweetness and kindness, but apparently that's just not how she is. Elizabeth felt that she was in Oprah's pocket, so to speak, after she signed the paperwork. In 2010, a lawsuit was filed against Oprah and her company. Unicus Performance Training claimed that they were fired for violating the terms of her agreement, specifically involving advertisement with her name or the website of the show. But it's not only the former staff that are made to keep silent. Oprah's own family has spoken out about her past behavior since the news of this scandal broke a few weeks ago. On air, Oprah is portrayed as this wholesome, sweet lady, but according to her stepmother, there is an unknown side to Oprah hidden from fans for years. According to Barbara, Oprah is one of the most controlling people you will ever meet. She claims that Oprah would not allow them to stay at her house when they tried to visit, forcing her own parents to stay in hotels with money out of their pockets. Barbara also said that Oprah was quick to anger, especially when it came to her staff, with several people being fired left and right over the years for the littlest things. But that's not all. Despite being a billionaire, Barbara actually lets Oprah stay at her home when she visits, which is something that Oprah apparently just hates. The first time she ever stayed over, Oprah allegedly complained that her bed sheets were not 1,000 threads and that her bath towels weren't big enough. That last one's a little excusable, okay? If you ever used a giant bath towel, I'm never going back. This woman has billions of dollars to do literally anything she wants, and what she wants is to make her family feel like a burden. It turns out that her wild child behavior though started a long time ago, well before she was a TV host, way back when she was just a little one. Several books have been published about Oprah over the years, some from her and some that are not. In her own book that she wrote, Oprah revealed that growing up she was far from an easy kid to handle. When she was young, she was sent to live with her father Vernon after she was caught stealing from her mother's purse. Despite being an on-screen persona known for charity and kindness, she was actually a menace throughout most of her life, according to family members at least. As I've mentioned previously, Oprah's stepmother is not allowed to stay at her house, and she is known to be pretty controlling. She admitted to doing some pretty troubling things at a very young age, including staging an amnesia bout where she broke several things in her mother's house and then called the police. According to Oprah's mother, she was uncontrollable, ungrateful, and after robbing her, maybe a little bit crazy. As the situation continues, more and more is surely going to come out of the situation with Oprah. While the current news is that the fund is active, she is inactive and refuses to discuss the backlash with anyone. She recently made a television appearance giving one of her most honest interviews of all time, discussing things like her use of Ozempic, obesity in general, and the shame that surrounds weight loss supplements. That's nice, but where's the money talk? People loved Oprah up until a few weeks ago, and now she won't even comment on the hate that she's receiving. Number 10, Lindsay Lohan. Lindsay Lohan was in the news for a lot of reasons in the early 2010s, whether it was her mental breakdown or her party escapades. The paparazzi was right there, ready to capture every little moment on camera. One night, Lindsay was in a van when it collided with a member of the paparazzi, smashing into the side door. The driver of the car was rushed to the hospital and an investigation took place, but it was ultimately revealed that the only person who was actually at fault was the driver of Lindsay's van. She's famous. Did you actually think that she drove her own vehicles? Despite the paparazzi clearly attempting to photograph Lohan at the time of the crash, like they're the reason it happened, the incident was chalked up to, look where you're going next time. I don't know, the driver of the van, Raymond Ortega, claims that Lindsay didn't even check to make sure that he was okay when he crashed into that car. Hey man, she was just a bit too focused on the man she just hit. Number 9, Kanye West. Kanye may claim to love the paparazzi, but his track record has shown anything but that. In 2013, well before Mr. Yeet canceled himself on Twitter, he was involved in an investigation set in place by the LAPD after it was reported by a paparazzo that Kanye had struck him and a fellow paparazzi one night at LAX. When Kanye got off a plane, he was being photographed by numerous photographers. So many people were surrounding him. One man named Daniel Ramos was particularly close to Kanye, and he did not appreciate Dan getting in his personal space. A video shows Kanye rushing at Ramos and attempting to grab his camera. Ultimately, the LAPD decided not to press any charges, but the case was referred to a city attorney who filed misdemeanor charges against the rapper. This wasn't the first time that this type of thing had happened to Mr. Yee. In 2008, he was involved in a similar confrontation with another paparazzo. The rapper smashed his camera and was subsequently arrested on charges of felony, and on top of a few smaller charges that forced him to serve 50 hours of community service. Number 8, Britney Spears. As many know, Britney began a downward spiral health-wise in 2007. After her divorce from Kevin Federline, she not only shaved her head, but she went on a rage-fueled rampage across the city, taking down anyone in her path, like Godzilla or something. After being swarmed by photographers at a gas station in LA, she went on a rampage, wielding an umbrella and swinging it at them over and over, and even hitting one of their cars, smashing the window. She also hurled expletives at anyone and everyone who had a camera, eventually launching her umbrella towards the crowd. This was the main incident that landed her in a psychiatric hold, but the paparazzi captured every single moment of it on camera, so the only thing the world saw of her for a bit was this mess. Let's hope she's doing better now. Number 7, Hugh Grant. When people see Hugh Grant, they think rom-com sweetheart, the bad guy from Dungeons and Dragons, or soon it's gonna be Oompa Loompa. That's just a creepy image, just don't watch that trailer. But anybody with the news in 2008 remembers him as a bean waster. A paparazzo named Ian Whitaker was following Hugh around his neighborhood, trying to snap as many quality pics as possible. Grant noticed him and walked over to ask him to leave. I'm just kidding, he walked over and started kicking the heck out of him. 3 times to be more specific, before he literally kneed him in the groin. He then picked up and opened a family-sized can of baked beans and just chucked it at Ian like he was launching a nade into the battlefield. He then stood over the photographer like a freaking Bond villain and he asked him, "Do you have any children?" And when he said yes, Grant said something that I'm not allowed to say on the internet. It was just that messed up. He's scary. Police were eventually called to his home where he was arrested and charged with, well, he physically kneed a guy. So it was in the most sensitive area ever. If anything, they should have taken him to jail forever. That hurts so much. Number 6, Will Smith. That's right, Will Smith is on this list for slapping someone, but it's not Chris Rock. I just figured we all know about that one. Hey, it's why he was canceled. What are we talking about today? Oh yeah, an incident on the red carpet that left one paparazzo with a big red mark on his face. Will was walking the red carpet at his Men in Black 3 premiere, giving people interviews when a Ukrainian comedian named Vitaly Sejik approached him. A man who is unfortunately famous for being an absolutely disgusting person towards celebrities. He pretended to be a reporter and he began interviewing Will Smith. He suddenly pulled himself towards Smith and he tried to kiss him on the cheek in his mouth, and Will obviously shoved him back and gave him a little, "Hey bud, what the Just a little backhand to the face, nothing major, and then he was gone. A team of security following Mr. Smith picked this guy up and carried him away like the little toddler that he was. Who knew Will was practicing for his Oscar slap all the way back then? Number 5. Justin Bieber. Justin is no stranger to the paparazzi. They basically filmed every terrible moment of his adolescence so that he can just go online, Google himself, and cry whenever he wants. Back in 2013, the Biebs was on tour in London when the paparazzi caught wind of his location. They followed him around the city everywhere he went. One day, Justin was trying to get into his SUV when a paparazzo yelled something at him. Probably something gross and rude. Honestly, the video I watched was a little muffled, so who knows? You know how the paparazzi are though. Bieber was about to close the door shut, but he opened it back up and he took a swing and said, "Hey, what'd you say, man? What'd you say? I'll beat the F out of you." And he looked like a child doing it. It's not a great move, but it was understandable as the camera person clearly made contact with Justin before spouting whatever nonsense they were spouting. The photographer tried to press charges, but the cops were just kind of like, excuse me, mate, that's Justin Bieber. What's the point? Unfortunately for the Biebs, memes were becoming very popular in the early 2010s. Thousands of Photoshop pictures were spread across the internet, and Justin cemented himself as a paparazzi go-to, because they were like, he's easy to gaslight, let's do it. Number 4, Sean Penn. This is an older entry, but it's still worth talking about because it's kind of neat. Shortly before his marriage to Madonna in 1985, Sean Penn noticed a helicopter hovering around his Malibu beach home. Once he realized that it was filled with paparazzi trying to snap pictures of him, Sean took matters into his own hands. He walked down to the beach and carved a message out in 20-foot letters that said, "Forget you." Remember that song? Nah, I'm just kidding. It said, "Fuck you." If that wasn't enough of a message for them, he decided to double down by grabbing his personal safety bang bang and fired it into the air. According to guests at their home at the time, Sean came back and said, "I would be very excited to see one of those choppers crash and burn." This guy sounds like a James Bond bad guy. Seriously, he could team up with the other dude. "I would very much enjoy watching you burn, Mr. Bond." This wasn't the first or last time that Sean would get a little bit extreme with the paparazzi. At least those guys were in a helicopter. In 2008, Sean reportedly kicked and punched a paparazzo who was trying to snap pictures outside of a hotel that he was staying at in Beverly Hills. Apparently, the guy went through his trash to get the information on where he was, so got what he deserved. People blasted Sean for being physical, but come on, if someone popped up at your house after finding your information in a trash can, wouldn't you want to kick them too? Number 3, Tobey Maguire. Ever since he first squeezed his face into our lives in the original live-action Spider-Man franchise, Tobey has been seen as a quiet man who gives off a calm uncle vibe. As such, he's been casted in many roles following Spider-Man that leaned into that tendency. You know, Nick Carraway in the film Great Gatsby, and well, that's about the best example I've got. However, as the years went on and paparazzi began swarming Tobey at every opportunity, he's been pegged as an angry man who just hates having his picture being taken. In one video that has since gone viral, Tobey is swarmed by the paparazzi while trying to drive out of a parking lot in LA. He yells at the paparazzi to move after he had politely asked them to, accidentally slamming a door into a cameraman in frustration. Since then, anyone with a camera is seen as a threat to Tobey, so much so that he will either give you the most horrifying glare of your life if he sees you taking a picture of him, or he'll just straight up take your camera away. Like, how mean can you be just to snap someone's phone out of their hand? If you did it with a web though, that would be a different story. Number 2, Nicole Kidman. Nicole Kidman is a wonderful actor, but apparently she does not make a good caution cone. In 2013, she was trying to enter the Carlyle Hotel in Manhattan after returning home from a Calvin Klein show at New York Fashion Week. You know, just your average Tuesday. Suddenly, a notorious paparazzo crashed into Nicole going full speed on his bicycle. In the video, it looks like he tries to make a half-hearted attempt to stop himself, but like, get off the sidewalk, dude! It's not called the side bike! I'm sorry, if I write it, I have to read it. Freelance photographer Carl Wu was lucky this time. Despite knocking her to the ground and her threatening to press charges, the police decided not to arrest him and instead issued a ticket for riding his bike on the sidewalk. They said an accident's an accident, but this dude was literally holding a massive camera and trying to take pictures of Nicole while he was riding a bike. If I jog into someone I was staring down while holding a battle axe, is that an accident or just a clever way to get revenge on the guy who cut me off at No Frills? It was my turn! Nicole walked away with no injuries, and it was revealed that this was not Carl's first interaction with celebrities in such an outlandish way. He ran into Lady Gaga at an awards show the year before, behaving inappropriately to say the least. A Tumblr page was made for Carl called FU Carl Wu, and there is a word that you haven't heard in a bit. Tumblr. In 2023, that's the name of those fancy adult sippy cups. And at number 1, Leonardo DiCaprio. Capping off our list is the Wolf of Wall Street himself, Mr. Leonardo DiCaprio. Leo's had a few run-ins with paparazzi over the years. In fact, in 2014, he fell victim to that Ukrainian prankster that tried to kiss Will Smith. Only this time, the guy decided to snuggle up to Leo's nether regions. But he actually handled that situation pretty well. He laughed it off, and I swear he's mouthing the words, "I love this guy." Well, that guy got tossed out like a napkin, and it's not why he's on this list. The year before, Leo was on his way to meet up with his Wolf of Wall Street co-star Jonah Hill for lunch, when he decided to pull a little pranky poo on Jonah. He ran up to him with his phone, screaming like a crazy fan, and it only took Jonah 2 seconds to realize what was going on, but according to him, his Wolf of Wall Street buddy basically gave him a heart attack. He was beyond scared. When the news found out that tiny piece of information that Jonah was a little scared, the paparazzi blew it up into Leo almost takes out Jonah Hill. There was way too much of a scandal caused from what was just a light-hearted, fun moment between friends. Yeah, I know that's not really a crazy one, but I just wanted to end this list on a lighter note. Number 10, rehabilitation. Oh baby, baby, how was she supposed to know that substances don't end very well? Britney is famous for many things, her voice, her missing hair, and now her freedom. But one of her tamer media scandals came in 2007 following a long night of rage-fueled menacing. She checked herself into a rehab facility. She had recently divorced from her background dancer slash husband, Kevin Federline, and apparently was not taking the situation well. As we know now, there was a massive amount of media and public involvement with the divorce. The entire thing was basically documented for everyone to see. I still remember Britney's bald head on my TV screen at the age of 6 because my sister just loved TMZ. According to her manager at the time, the messy divorce combined with the public shame that she was feeling, the decision was made to check herself into a rehabilitation facility somewhere in Los Angeles. She stayed in the facility for 30 days before being released back into the wild, but despite that stint, things did not get better, and her family life especially was next to suffer. Number 9, the 2007 VMAs. The MTV Video Music Awards have been host to some of the most confrontational and dramatic moments in music history. Nicki Minaj famously called out host Miley Cyrus when she took the stage to accept an award. Kanye West interrupted Taylor Swift's acceptance speech to tell people that he was happy for Taylor, but that Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time. Yeah, I know he goes by Ye now, but I don't care. When Britney Spears took to the stage at the 2007 VMAs, fans were happy to see her on her feet as the media made it seem like she had been going down a dark path, which she was. She appeared on stage sporting a blonde wig, which was obvious to anyone who was aware of the head shaving incident a few months prior. She started singing in the most under-enthusiastic way ever, and while her background dancers are giving it their all, it looks like Britney's just stumbling around the stage with little to no idea what's going on. She even attempted to lip-sync her songs, but she failed miserably, barely coming close to what she needed to do. The performance, which was her last before taking her hiatus from performing, will live forever on the internet for the world to see, and was actually parodied in the final moments of the comedy Disaster Movie, which is the most random piece of cinema I have ever seen in my life. Number 8, public family feud. Britney is just like anyone else. She brushes her teeth in the morning, she goes to bed at night, and she constantly fights with her family, like non-stop. Now you guys don't do that? Okay, I'm just gonna make a phone call. Britney wasn't born into a typical happy family life. In fact, quite the opposite. Her parents struggled to make ends meet, her father was an avid consumer of the no-no juice, and an aggressive presence in her life. According to Britney's mom, her daughter urged her to leave her husband several times over the years after seeing her suffer years and years of verbal mistreatment. Throughout her rise to fame, her father was primarily kept out of her life until 2007 when she was placed under a conservatorship, which means that a court decided that she was unfit to control her own finances, so they placed her father in charge, because he had such a great track record. Over the 13 years she was under the conservatorship, it's estimated that her father stole $5 million from his own daughter. She famously fought with her sister Jamie Lynn, who was the star of a Nickelodeon show called Zoe 101, until outside life caused her to take a break from the acting world to be a mama. The paparazzi was able to capture lots of juicy pics of Britney yelling at her family, blowing up every single aspect they could of it. She eventually patched things up with her sister in 2019, but the jury is still out on her relationship with her dad. Number 7. Marrying a background dancer. Britney's love life has been anything but straight and narrow. Over her life, she's had many men come and go, never seeming to find the right fit for her lifestyle. In 2006, Britney married a man named Kevin Federline after meeting one fateful night in a nightclub. After spending 1 week together, Britney invited Kevin to join her world tour, where he acted as both her lover and a background dancer. They describe meeting as love at first sight. Kevin spotted her from across the room and felt an instant connection. A magnet appeared in front of them like a cartoon and it just drew them together. The paparazzi couldn't get enough of these two. While they were seemingly in a genuine relationship, they made it seem like the couple were the most chaotic in the world. Their union was a media massacre. They were so stoked to see this relationship either crash and burn or, well, yeah, they just wanted it to crash and burn. After less than a year together, the couple filed for divorce, apparently citing constant fighting as their main issue. Not long after, Britney went on her famous meltdown, so needless to say, she did not take the breakup very well. Number 6. Smacked herself. This is a more recent scandal with Miss Spears. Recently, Britney was in the most peaceful and godlike city in the world, Las Vegas, Nevada, when she spotted the NBA player Victor Wembanyama at a hotel, and I'm very sorry if I mispronounced that name. According to the police reports and the recently released security video, Britney tapped Vic on his back and shoulder in an attempt to get his attention. This is when his security team had reportedly backhanded her, causing the whole situation in the first place. Britney claimed that the security detail laid their hands on her, but the reality was the security team's ninja-like reflexes caused them to accidentally push her back towards herself, inadvertently slapping herself across the face. The funny thing with that situation is just how hard she was convinced that someone else had hit her. Like, she didn't feel her own hand touch her face. That'd be like me standing here right now and going, "Hey, who did that? Chris, is that you?" That's the camera guy, he never gets a shout out. With the footage now not only proving her guilt but her misremembering of the situation, many are beginning to question if Britney was all there during the situation. Just saying, the only time I forget stuff that significant is after a couple of trips to my deck, if you know what I mean. Number 5. The meltdown. As many people know, Britney began a downward spiral health-wise in 2007. After her divorce from Kevin Federline, she not only shaved her head, but she went on a rage-fueled rampage across the city, taking down anyone in her path. After being swarmed by photographers at a gas station in LA, she went on a rampage wielding an umbrella and swinging it over and over at one of their cars, attempting to smash their window. She also hurled expletives at anyone and everyone with a camera, eventually launching the umbrella towards the crowd. This was the main incident that landed her in a psychiatric hold. Fun fact about that umbrella used in the incident, it was auctioned off for $7,000 online, and I cannot wait for it to show up. All my life savings on that thing. I hope there's still some broken glass on it. Number 4. Accidentally released birthday suit pics. Birthday suits, a term which originated in Germany as a term for the clothes that you are born in, which is none. Britney accidentally exposed her birthday suit in 2022 when she posted a series of photos to her Instagram of herself holding her new puppy. While it may not seem outside the realm of reality for anyone who is a hardcore Britney fan, to everyone else, she just exposed herself on one of the most used social media platforms in the world. The photos were later deleted after a series of negative comments and messages began bombarding her inbox. Nothing ever came of this, but just let this entry be a reminder to never post a picture of yourself holding a puppy in your birthday suit. Hold a bearded dragon or a snake or something, make yourself look edgy. Number 3. Weird TikToks. This entry isn't a scandal per se, but it certainly needs to be mentioned. Fans rejoiced when the hashtag #FreeBritney finally worked and she was released from her conservatorship in 2021. Since being released, fans were expecting her to possibly release some more music, or maybe even appear as a judge on a new reality show. Instead, what she has been up to is making some of the weirdest and hardest to watch TikToks on the planet. If you follow her account unironically, I do apologize, but this entry is probably not for you. Britney regularly posts videos of herself staring into the camera and dancing. Now, while this is the basis for the platform, she has this blank, lifeless stare when she does it, like she's peering directly into your soul. I've only ever witnessed a handful of these clips, but every time I do, I'm just reminded of how strange and unnerving the internet can be sometimes. Aren't you glad that you popped by this little slice of internet heaven? Click that like button if you are. Number 2. She shaved her head. In 2007, aka Britney's glory year, she famously posted a video of herself holding clippers in a barber's chair, missing most of her hair. Not all of it though, she looked a little bit like the dude from Brothers Grimm. If you haven't seen that movie, that is Heath Ledger's best performance, okay? A documentary about Britney's life was released in 2019 called Britney Spears Breaking Point. In the doc, she revealed the true story behind her shaving of the head. Following a brief stint in a rehab facility in Antigua, Britney fled to see her sons, who had been living with her ex Kevin. Of course, when she turned up at their doorstep and not at the facility that she was supposed to be in, Kevin refused to let her see the kids and sent her away. This led her to driving to Los Angeles to the salon where she shaved her head. The person who cut her hair kept it and quickly attempted to auction it off for $1 million, which sounds crazy, but you know that there are some weirdos out there who would have called that a bargain. Following the shaving, she made her way to a tattoo parlor where the artist asked her what happened to her hair, and Britney's response was, "I was just tired of people touching it. I just don't want people to touch my hair." This was an incident that eventually got Britney placed under the conservatorship, which she was released from in 2021, thankfully. Speaking of which, number 1, conservatorship. Britney's father was a dark cloud in her life, doing nothing but making everything harder for his daughter. Despite initially taking a back seat while she rose to fame, a court ruled in 2007 that she was unfit to control her own finances and granted that power instead to her father, who was a no-no juice enthusiast with a sweet tooth for expensive things. After the second time she was admitted to the hospital for psychiatric assessment, the financial power was thrust onto her father, who managed her money very well. I'm just kidding, he's a trash bag and he spent a lot of money that he didn't have. Her father reportedly stole $5 million from his daughter over the 13-year conservatorship, spending it on everything from vacations and boats to houses and cars, all wasted by Jamie. Financial woes were not the only problem that came with the conservatorship. According to a court report from 2019, Britney was unable to get married or have children under the conservatorship, which is, disgusting, just so gross. I don't care how crazy you are or unstable, if you want to get married, you go do it! Plus, what would have happened if she had a baby anyway? Like, oh, I'm sorry ma'am, you actually can't have that, you're too crazy for one of those, and I'm gonna have to confiscate that contraband. Thankfully, the conservatorship ended in 2021, and Britney is free to be her weird, wild self. If you need any proof, just check out the TikTok. Seriously, it's just